Hi, friends. In this episode, we are going to talk about what if you haven't processed the person that you love dying? So, I was coaching somebody this past week, and they were like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I've processed my mom dying. And they're like, they didn't have a very good relationship with their mom. And so they're like, well, yeah, like, I feel like yeah, I've handled it as well as I could be, or I've never really been affected, like, with the emotions. But she's like, now I'm kind of wondering if most of my grief is stemming from not only the death of her mom, but also grieving like that relationship that they had. And so I was thinking about that and I was like, that is a fairly common question that I get is how do I know if I haven't processed their death? Or better yet, how do I know if I've reached a place where like I'm good now, right? Like that I've completely processed it and I've worked through all that. I felt the feelings. And I think the short answer is that when your life is being affected negatively because of the grief that you're carrying around, that loss, the feelings that you're having, then you know that you haven't processed it fully, effectively. The longer answer is I believe that this is never a one and done thing, which I think is the hard part about grief, is that we think that it should be one and done. Okay, I've processed that, let me move on. And it's really not. This is something that will affect you for the rest of your life. And sometimes are smaller, sometimes are bigger, right? And so, for example, with my dad's birthday this year, there was a lot of circumstances happening at the same time that reminded me a lot about my dad's death and a lot of another family member dying who he was pretty similar to my dad. And so there was just a lot of things that came up, and I had a harder time then with my dad's birthday. I really missed him. My mom's birthday was a couple days ago, and for me, it was an easier time. That's not to say I didn't have a few sad moments and that I wasn't like, man, like I wish I could call her and say happy birthday or take her out to eat, right? Like, but it was more a little twinge. And so when we know or don't know if we've processed it is when that little twinge feels bigger, or it starts out as a twinge and then it grows and grows and grows until pretty soon, like you're either flight, fight, or freeze mode, right? Like you are ready to run, you're ready to like get, I don't want to feel these feelings, so I'm gonna eat everything in sight, or I'm gonna like, again, for me, I read a book, or I just eat tons of sweets and chocolate and I don't care, or fight, right? Like I'm ready to fight my husband because he doesn't understand me and life is awful. Or maybe like you have a work project and you just are like ready to duke it out with your boss because you're like, how dare you? Like nobody else gets this, right? Like that's the fight response. Or freeze is just like you just kind of freeze and you don't do anything. You don't really go forward, but you don't go backward. You're just like, it feels like nothing is ever getting better. That to me, that's what it feels like. It feels like you're just stuck in this place and it's just awful. And so when that is happening, right? And I think other ways that we can pick up on that and recognize that is if it's affecting your sleep, your health, relationships, your work, and especially your mind. The biggest thing that happens is that things are playing in our mind and we feel emotionally drained, physically drained because our mind is just going, going, going. It's like spinning out on this thing. And that affects everything else. And so when I was coaching this gal, you know, it's like, yeah, you probably haven't processed this because for her, it's just like, well, we didn't have a good relationship, right? Like, I'm not really sad. I'm not really, but as we were talking, it became more and more clear that she was sad. And it was more of the loss of the relationship that she never had with her mom versus her mom dying. right? Even sometimes when somebody who you have a tumultuous relationship with, when they die, there can be almost a little bit of relief. Like, oh, like I don't, especially for people that are very emotionally draining, or there is, I hate to use the word narcissistic because I do think that gets thrown around a lot. But if people have narcissistic tendencies or behaviors, and it's hard to have a relationship with people like that when they don't respect your time, your schedule, your boundaries. And so there can be a bit of relief that comes up that, oh, I don't really have to deal with that anymore. And then that can make you feel guilty because, well, it was my mom. I should have felt sad, right? Or whoever, your grandpa or whoever, like, or even maybe a family relative, and you're like, oh my gosh, well, but they died. Like, I should feel sad. And it's like, not necessarily. For that aspect, you can feel relief for yourself on the relationship side, and you can also grieve the relationship side, and you can grieve the person that you never got to experience, right? Like, so when I think of a mom, I think of my mom, and I think of how she was strict. She had a lot of rules. She was pretty vocal. She got loud. Like if we weren't listening, she was quick to yell at us. But she was also very strong in her faith. She was very kind. She was very forgiving. She would talk through things and then move past it, right? She didn't hold a grudge. And she was a person that a lot of people went to get advice from. And so that's what I think when I think of a mom. And I know that there's a lot of people that do not have a mom like that. And so when we think of that, that makes us sad because we know that is what a mom should be, right? And I use the term should very generally. But we think that's what a mom should be. A good mom should be this, right? And we see all the ways that our mom is failing. And I did that too, right? When she was alive, it's easy to look now when the relationship is whatever I want to make it because it's in my mind. But when we look back, like in the moment, right, I was very annoyed with my mom a lot of times because she would give advice even when I didn't want it. And so when we think a person should be doing something, we tend to have feelings about that, right? Because somehow they're failing or not showing up how we think they should. And this flows into ourselves and how we think then we should be showing up as a spouse, as a mom, as a coworker, and all the ways we're failing. And so anyway, of all of this, when I was talking with this gal, when we were coaching through, she realized that there was a lot of things that she is grieving and that she wishes she could have said to her mom or that they could have reached maybe a better place. And then I know for this specific situation, she wasn't there when her mom died, and there was some regret and trauma around that. And so when you have that, what I always encourage people to do is to write a letter if you can and just really share with that person everything that's on your heart. Really share with them like your hurt and the ways that you failed. Because for her too, part of it was she wished that she would have been less harsh with her mom. And she's like, I know, as I'm growing and learning things, she's like, I know that there are a lot of things I could have let go and I didn't, and I held on to them, and that hindered our relationship as well. And so she had a lot of regret and guilt and hurt around her actions as well. And so just to put that all in a letter and to really write to that person from the heart, and then you can shred it, you can throw it in the garbage, you can burn it, you can keep it, whatever you want to do with it, but just to get it out there, right? And so that's kind of the step. If you realize like things are affecting you negatively, is to really ask yourself, like, okay, what hurts and what hurts really are coming up from this? And then, when you write your letter, or if you're not big on writing, you can type it into a Word document, or even there's voice memos. You can put a voice memo on your phone. But I really encourage you then to like read through it and pick one, maybe two emotions that you're feeling from what you wrote. And so, again, I don't know what this gal wrote in her letter, but I do know that you can usually find an underlying theme of guilt, right? Like, I just feel so guilty. I feel guilty how I showed up. I feel guilty I wasn't there when she died. I feel like whatever the overwhelming emotion is, maybe it is just a lot of regret. I wish I would have appreciated you more. I wish I would have said I love you more. I wish I would have reached out to you more. Right? Like, so I think for me, probably one of my is regrets, that I didn't appreciate my parents when they were here. And so maybe it's too just a lot of maybe sadness is the main one. Just finding what is the main emotion and then asking yourself, why do I feel that way? Well, for me, like with the regrets, I wish I would have appreciated my parents, right? And what does appreciate mean? I do think when I break it down like that, like I did appreciate my parents. I probably wasn't as vocal as I looking back in hindsight, right? Like I wish I would have been. And especially as my kids are getting older now, they're growing. There's a lot of things that I see in my kids that I'm like, oh yeah, I did that too. And I wish I could apologize, right? And so even to see that, and then maybe from that, you want to write a second letter to say, okay, I wish that I would have appreciated my parents more when they were alive. And so from that, right, for my first letter would be about the regret I feel and the times I didn't take advantage of the circumstance or of the situation, how much I like kind of botched that, right? And then getting down to the thought that I have of I wish I would have appreciated my parents more when they were alive, to write a second letter, just saying your appreciation for them now, writing it out. Because really, when we are looking at processing death, what we are doing is we're trying to process the emotions that come up. And again, that might be one day, the next day I might be angry, the next day I might be just sad, right? So you might have to keep doing this as it comes up and just to navigate through that. That is how we know that we're processing things. And like I said in the beginning, this is ongoing because we always are having thoughts and feelings and emotions. And so even though things are in the past, when we think of them now, they're current to our brain because our brain can't tell the difference between past, present, or future, right? It thinks like everything's happening right now, which is again why we tend to spiral because everything feels urgent, everything feels awful. And so just to look at that and be like, okay, like I really think I need to process this again. I know I've done it before, but I'm going to do it again because there's something that's in my life again, like sometimes different circumstances where, like I said, when my kids now are getting older, there's different circumstances of parenting that I didn't have when they were toddlers. Now, as they're getting into teens, there's just things that I didn't have the experience of when they were toddlers. And so that's okay. But knowing that I might have to process through this again and knowing that's okay as well. That doesn't mean anything's gone wrong. It doesn't mean that I didn't process it properly the first time. That's why it's coming up. That's not what's happening. It's just an ongoing wave of figuring out what our thoughts and feelings are. That's it. And it can feel scary, but it really doesn't have to be scary. It's just pausing and reflecting and talking through things. And so I encourage you, if you want to talk through things with somebody who has all the tools and the skills and the knowledge, I encourage you go to catholicgriefcoach.com. And I invite you first to join our grief group. So I'm starting um, a weekly, not a weekly, a monthly grief groups. We're going to start May 9th. It runs for four Fridays in a row. And really, it's just a time where you can come and you can share what you're going through and you can get coached. Or even if you show up every week and you just listen, hearing other people talk about grief, there is something soothing about that. There is something that makes you feel not alone. You feel supported. It helps you understand that grief doesn't have to be just what you're looking at through your lens. It can be such a broad scope of things. And even that makes you feel less alone. It makes you feel united with people. And it is a Catholic group, so we are going to be talking about the saints and prayers and have reflection that'll lead you in. And so, but again, just to really have a community that you feel supported and you can share your faith with others if you want, right? You don't have to talk about your faith at all. Mostly it's focused on grief, but it's just a place where then it is Catholic. So if you want to talk about your Catholic faith, that is certainly welcome. So, that is it for this episode, but I invite you guys to go to CatholicGriefCoach.com and join the grief group. I look forward to seeing you there, and I will be praying for you guys, and I hope you have the very best possible day that you can. God bless.